across the SEC. We got a lot of scrimmage nuggets, a lot of pieces of intel to get you. I'm going to go as quick as I can, but I want to dive as deep as I can. I'm going to start with the national champs. I'm going to start in Athens, Georgia. How many times do you listen to Kirby Smart talk about his team and say, offense kind of ahead of the defense right now? That's kind of the way it is in Athens. The offense is ahead of the defense, which is not shocking if you know the makeup of this year's Georgia team. I think if you're just kind of floating out there, maybe you're a Nebraska fan and you're not paying close attention to Georgia, maybe that does sound a little weird, especially coming off the year they just had and how they had that year. But it is true. Offense ahead of the defense there. Now, all these scrimmages situationally don't exactly shake out like regular games would be, but Kirby Smart's not window dressing you. He's not head faking you. Yeah, they got a little ways to go defensively up there. We talked about that last week on the show. That's not anything new. I think what he talked about, he being Kirby Smart yesterday after their scrimmage, sort of reflects a lot of what I heard from the scrimmage. And that is, there's so many talented players in their defensive front, a lot of names you would recognize if you follow recruiting, but yet you don't have that alpha yet. You don't have those guys, nor should you in real terms, that fit the mold of some of those guys that just went off to the NFL. And so it takes a little while, and that doesn't mean that when we look at the JP poll later tonight and you see Georgia ranked in the top 5, or you look at the coaches poll or the AP poll tomorrow and you see Georgia in the top 5, that doesn't mean they're overrated. What it does mean is there's probably a different way they've got to go about things this year. This is not a shock. This is something that I've been saying on this show ever since they won the title in January. They could very well do it again, but if they do it again this year, it'll be a whole lot more because offense was able to carry them. And especially early on in the year, guys, offense is going to have to carry them. They don't have a murderer's row schedule, but there could come a time, maybe as early as week 1, where that Oregon team you're facing has a little bit bigger number on the board than you're comfortable with, and Stetson Bennett or a couple of those veteran tailbacks you have, or hopefully some of this wideout talent that is starting to emerge, carries a game for you. The other point of emphasis there is the wideout position. Arian Smith got hurt yesterday for them, maybe the fastest player on their team overall. Arian Smith is a name that they're going to count on. Now, they are thin at receiver. It's a very important position for them. They are thin there. Kirby Smart talked about it openly yesterday. This is not something that's been hidden from anyone. They've got guys that just have to hit for them. No two ways about it. Some of them are young. They've got to hit. So Georgia, these are first world problems, but there is no perfect team out there. And so Stetson Bennett, I think it's really interesting now. He comes back from winning a national title, comes into this year. Everyone thinks what they think about Stetson Bennett. Last year, you saw him win, and you saw them ride a historic defense en route to winning games. And there was never a time where Stetson Bennett had to step up and have some Trevor Lawrence type game. That's not the kind of player he is. Very good player, though. I thought he had played some of his best football at the most opportune moments for them. There could be times this year, plural times, where Stetson Bennett's got to step up and throw the ball a little bit more than he was asked to last year, fit it into windows a little bit more frequently than he was asked to last year. That's just the way they'll have to win this year. That shouldn't be a shock to you if you follow college football and you follow the NFL draft. Next up, the team they played in the SEC Championship and the National Championship, Alabama. It seems like that offensive line's coming along as good as they need it to come along. Remember, when they came out of spring, I don't know how many of you watched the Alabama spring game, but it was a travesty on the left side. They had to take Will Anderson out of the game. That's the guy who got robbed of a trip to New York City last year, 31 in Crimson, in case you haven't heard of him. They had to take him out of the spring game because he just wrecked everyone. And it was kind of sad to watch. It was a Sarah McLachlan special, as we call it here. And so what we did leave spring knowing is Alabama didn't have their answer at left tackle. They went to Vanderbilt. They got Tyler Steen. They viewed him as a plug-and-play left tackle. That's never a definite, but they viewed him that way. So far, fingers crossed for Alabama, through one scrimmage, it looks like he's going to be fine there. J.C. Latham, former five-star guy, therefore on the right side, looks like he's going to be fine. I speak hesitantly because I know how much can change from scrimmage 1 to game 1, but it sounds like Nick Saban even yesterday intimated that they're pleased with where they are so far along the offensive line, which shifts my attention to other areas of this team. Also, by the way, I did want to mention one more thing. For those around the Alabama program, you remember when Doug Marrone got brought in there? We talked about him a couple of times. He was a former NFL head coach. Saban brought him in there to be an offensive line coach, and it sounded like, man, what a wealth of riches we have here at Alabama. It didn't work out at all. And every time I've spoken to anyone around there about offensive line, they have not talked about players. They haven't talked about Steen or J.C. Latham. They thought they had good enough players last year. They don't think they had the right coach there last year. Now, that's not making excuses for him. Nick Saban's ultimately the guy who has to sign off on that stuff. I don't think he hired the right guy last year. I think they all realize that now. It's easy to say after you sort of, get in the trenches with him and you got live bullets flying. Well, now we enter a new season. They brought Eric Wolford in. They can't say enough nice things about that guy. So that's point one. Point two, is there a true number one receiver on this team? There are several who have the capability of being that. I think that's really the effort there right now. Jermaine Burton transferred in from Georgia. He could be that. Ja'Cory Brooks caught that big touchdown in the Iron Bowl last year. He could be that. I thought out of high school, JoJo Earle could be that. And he's only a sophomore, but JoJo Earle's been hurt now, so he's been sidelined. And so it leaves room for some of their true freshmen or sophomore receivers to come in. Kobe Prentice is a true freshman name that they mentioned. Nick Saban mentioned him yesterday. He's a four-star guy, top 100 guy, one of those classic examples of someone who would be one of the crown jewels of many classes, but he gets lost in the mix if he signs with a program like Alabama until it's time to play. And if you can play, then you're going to stand out. And it sounds like Kobe Prentice had a really good day yesterday. I'll tell you one piece of interesting feedback I've gotten from a couple of guys, one on the NFL scouting level over the past week. As folks are making their rounds throughout the SEC, I have not had anyone say their secondary is not good. At corner, they're not good. I have not had anyone say that. I want to always preface for what I'm about to say. There are some who have seen them at corner. They've been hurt there a little bit. That's part of what I'm about to say. But the other part is there are some folks who have looked at preview magazines, and then they've looked at Bama at corner, not safety, corner, and said, I don't think they're as good there as folks believe they are. Kool-Aid McKinstry is a good player, but Kyrie Jackson is still dealing with, I think, a groin issue. But outside of that, Eli Ricks is viewed as a guy that probably, from a scouting standpoint, does not fulfill the preview magazine hype. That's the way he's viewed internally in scouting circles. I haven't stood on the sideline in Tuscaloosa and watched him myself. Nick Saban mentioned him yesterday, though. And now that I think about it, what Saban said is the same thing a lot of scouts say. That guy's going to have trouble grasping your defense. So I think they're still very good. First world problems, obviously at Alabama too. I will be very interested to watch them at corner when the season unfolds. Could be a Georgia situation from last year. Didn't really matter who they had at corner, did it? Because they had the pass rush they had. Alabama probably have the best pass rush in the country this year. So can you get by with having above average corner play, even if what we're saying right now is right? Yeah, probably could. Next up, Ole Miss. Interesting developments in Oxford. Not only did the official Ole Miss football account tweet out Pate State material today, salute you guys for that, but also there seems to be a move being made at quarterback. When we came out of spring, it did not sound good for Jackson Dart. Then again, that's why God created summer, and that's why God created fall camp. On like the 8th or 9th day, I believe he did that. And the reason is because Jackson Dart or someone of his ilk needed every one of those days. And it sounds like it's paying off for Jackson Dart. Sounds like what we heard coming out of spring has sort of rewritten itself. What we heard coming out of spring was has not gotten the playbook, has not gotten the offense, turnover prone, looks like Luke Altmaier is going to be this guy. Unless something radical changes, looks like he's going to be the guy to lead us at quarterback. It sounds like something radical has changed. I don't know how radical it is in reality, but it does sound like it's changed because yesterday at their scrimmage, he had a really good day, and talking to 3 people with direct knowledge, a.k.a. people who saw the scrimmage, they said Jackson Dart's going to start for this team. I mean, now it's unless something unforeseen happens, it's going to be Jackson Dart. So I guess that's what you have in mind when you go into the portal to get guys like that. But also, what does this mean for the rest of the team? You know, because if you panned out at quarterback, if that hit for you in the transfer portal, well, we know that Ole Miss was in the transfer portal about as much as any team in the country this past cycle. Who else could hit there? Now, they had a ton of guys out yesterday. Zach Evans, I don't think, did much of anything either. But Zach Evans, I'm not going to, reiterate what I said about him last week. We've gotten exceptionally strong feedback about him from NFL scouts that we've spoken to. But if I just combine those things, and I'm a guy who's on record as taking the under 7.5 on Ole Miss, if Jackson Dart is remotely what he was made out to be, if you just get plus level quarterback play from him, doesn't even need to be A level, just plus level, and guys like Zach Evans are what I'm pretty sure he is, I'm going to lose money on Ole Miss, is really what that comes down to. So am I rooting against them? No, I've lost money before. It'll probably happen again. We can make up for it. But I think I would feel good right now if I were an Ole Miss fan through one scrimmage, for what that's worth. Over in Lee County, Alabama, that's where Auburn University is, not the University of Auburn. Brian Harsin yesterday said something kind of fascinating. And for those of you, the 99% of you who did not catch Brian Harsin's post-first scrimmage press conference, he said, I saw a little separation at quarterback today. So you may think to yourself, good for Zach Calzada. That Texas A&M transfer, recovered from injury, starting to pull away. He's talking about TJ Finley, or at least we have it on very good authority. He's talking about TJ Finley. And he wouldn't pick up his phone today, so Brian Harsin will not confirm that directly, but I'm telling you, he's talking about TJ Finley. TJ Finley played at Auburn last year. He transferred the year before from LSU, and this is why, again, this is why they do these things. This is why we don't just pick up the magazine and then say play ball. We do have to go through camp because guys can get better. Guys can not take advantage and can take advantage of opportunity. Also, Calzada's coming off injury, so there's this other reality out there that sometimes in the real world, it takes a little while to get yourself up to speed, even at your old place, much less at a new place. So here's where I think things sit at Auburn right now. I think TJ Finley would start for them if they had to play a football game today. I also happen to know they don't have to. They also have a scrimmage or two left, and I think that what's about to happen is you are about to have this quarterback battle shaved from 3 to 2. I think Robbie Ashford, the Oregon transfer, is probably going to be on the outside looking in there, probably. And then I think it'll come down to TJ Finley taking reps with the ones this week, if I had to guess, and it'll be Zach Calzada rapidly trying to get up to speed, and that next scrimmage they have, really starting now, and then leading into that next scrimmage, that's when Zach Calzada is really on the clock. Now, the other bit of good news, guys, if we have Auburn's schedule, I didn't ask you for this, but yeah, so we have it. If you'll look at Auburn's schedule, they play Mercer week 1. They play San Jose State week 2. So you don't ever want to disrespect opponents. You never want to overlook opponents, but this is a program, this is a team, as we talked about, where if you don't have the quarterback battle definitively, written in stone by week 1, it's not the worst thing in the world. That is a luxury that a couple of inferior opponents to start the season gives you. So that's where things stand in the SEC. We are not remotely done with that.